You should have heard the neighbors when she was with.
BM1, sound the call. All hands on deck. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Temecula Valley VFW Post 4089. Tonight we are celebrating the 249th birthday of the United States Navy. And I am your Master of Ceremonies, HM1, Fleet Marine Force, Surface Warfare, Samantha BIGHAM. As a reminder, military members should salute on the first note of the national anthem and order arms on the last note of the music. Our civilian guests should place their hand over their right hand over their heart during the national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and remain standing for the national anthem and the invocation. One second. At ease. Ladies and gentlemen, the invocation will be delivered by Chaplain Frank CORREA.
Join me in just a moment of prayer. Almighty God, today we celebrate our nation's Navy's birthday. We have sailors currently serving worldwide in the air, on the water, and even under the water. They serve all of us, our nation, and each one of us individually through the work they faithfully carry out every day on our behalf. Lord, we offer up gratitude for every sailor that has ever served in the history of our great nation. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. Please join me for a moment of silence for those who are no longer here. Thank you. Please be seated. This evening, for your joy, we have some speakers. First off, our first speaker is going to be QM3 Mark Christensen. Mark hails from Long Island, New York. He joined the U.S. Navy at 21 years old as a quartermaster. He served from 1972 to 1976, when he was medically retired. Mark has been a member of our post for 2 years, since 2022. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, thank you. Good evening. Welcome all to our Navy's 279th birthday. In January 1972, I flew for the first time in my life from JFK, New York, to Chicago, and was transported to the Great Lakes Boot Camp by bus. That time of year, Great Lakes is always very cold, below zero. I remember standing at attention in the courtyard and waiting for our indoctrination to begin, and literally freezing for what seemed hours. I remembered the guys from California had no warm clothes and they were complaining about the freezing cold. And we stood, and we stood, and we stood some more. My next step on the Navy trail was to Newport, Rhode Island for a 3-month quartermaster A school in navigation. I had graduated earlier from Paul Smith College for forestry and surveying, and the Navy figured I'd do good in the navigational field. We went to classes daily and learned the A through Z's of navigation. I graduated there and was given further orders. I believe that the quartermaster rate in the Navy is one of the best. We were always on the bridge. We knew where we were going, when we were getting there. So it was a good rate. My orders out of A school were twofold, and I was given a choice. The Vietnam War was coming to close, and the ship I was ordered to was coming home from there. I had the choice to fly over to the Gulf of Tonkin and meet up with my ship, the USS Chicago, a guided missile cruiser, where they would be for another couple of months, or fly to San Diego and board another ship on temporary duty until the Chicago returned to its home port of Coronado. I chickened out and chose California. The first year, the Chicago went into dry dock at the Naval Repair Facility at Long Beach Naval Shipyard. The ship was completely out of the water and sitting on huge metal blocks. It was a strange sight to see. I lived the whole time on board that in the dry dock. Many a nights I left the ship to get away from the noise and go downtown Long Beach. After the overhaul and some preliminary sea trials, the Chicago left for her home port in Coronado. She was ported there because she was too tall to get under the Coronado Bay Bridge, which led to the naval station at 32nd Street. She was docked at Pier Lima behind the large carriers, Constellation and Enterprise. About 6 more months of very exhaustive sea trials, I made my first Westpac cruise in May of 1974. The ship's port of call were Hawaii, Yokosuka, Guam, Hong Kong, Subic Bay, Singapore, Karachi, the pits, Mombasa, Kenya. Hawaii was the first port I ever stopped at, and I remember thinking how lucky I was to go to Hawaii. We sailed past the memorial of the World War II sunken ship, the Arizona, upon entering the harbor. It was a very sobering experience. That sunken ship to this day still leaks its vital fluids to the surface. Of all the ports I visited, my favorite was Philippines. I wonder why. Longapo was the naval port city there. The pretty girls were plenty, as were the bars, and the drinks were cheap. San Miguel beer, I'm sure you guys know what that is, was norm for most nights. Yokosuka, Japan was a huge culture shock to me. Nobody spoke English and the city was very overcrowded. A buddy, Joe, and I took a train to go to a well-known pagoda attraction. People were packed in like sardines and nobody spoke to anybody. Karachi, Pakistan was the worst. It was dirty, crowded, smelly, and noisy. But it was very interesting. I saw men carrying their beds around on the streets where they would sleep at night, right on the street. I left the ship one night with a bunch of buddies to go eat at a hotel's buffet. Hated the food, all I could eat was the desserts. Guam was basically a naval-based town. I remember going to a local downtown Chinese restaurant and having food. It was good, and I'm sure it was much better than what we were having on the ship that night. Hong Kong, now that was a place of mystique and fascination. Pulling into Hong Kong Harbor was majestic. Looking up at Victoria Peak from the wing of the bridge, I was in awe of that city. Joe and I traveled by train from Hong Kong to the limits of communist China. Most of these lands were farms and the people farmers. These people looked extremely old, decrepit, and in bad health. The sea detail to get into Singapore was very lengthy. We went through the Straits of Malacca. It was very narrow and shallow, and the detail lasted 12 hours or more. The quartermasters had to be on the bridge at all times. I steered the ship with the instructions, of course, of the officer in charge, many of those 12 hours. Singapore was one of the cleanest and most orderly cities I'd ever seen in my life. Although it was ruled by a very brutal government who still believed in caning and capital punishment. I don't think any of our crew got in trouble there. Mombasa, Kenya was quite the experience, very primitive in all its charm. The downtown area was a bustling area with many street vendors, mostly selling ebony wood statues and animal figures. I bought a few. The downtown area, of course, had many bars, and of course, we visited them. Crossing the line, the equator, from Mombasa to Mauritius was a rite of passage for all sailors. You were a pollywog prior to the crossing, and then you became a shellback. It was not without much fanfare, though. The shellbacks were allowed to haze and harass the polywogs for the entire day. We were sent through tubes of garbage, we were hit with fire hoses, and then dunked in the garbage-laden dunk tank. It was all in fun, and that night, a large feast consisting of steak and lobster was had by all. It was a great honor to become a shellback. Any shellbacks here today? All right, thank you for your service. It was fun, wasn't it? Nowadays, I don't know what they do nowadays, but it's probably
watered down.
Watered down. So that was that, and now it's now. Mauritius was a small island in the Indian Ocean. Joe and I took a break from the ship and checked into a 5-star hotel. Well, it wasn't exactly a 5-star hotel, but it was okay, and we did get away from the ship. The ship made an unscheduled stop at an even smaller island called Mauritius. Mauritius was a protectorate, Rodriguez. Rodriguez was a protectorate of Mauritius. Half of the crew was authorized to visit in uniform. The ship was anchored in the harbor. In order to get to the island, the shipboard taxis were sent out. The town was so small that the sailors who visited drank the whole town out of beer. The natives were so very glad to see us, especially our money. We sailed the Indian Ocean for many months after that and played chicken with the Russian ships. One of our sailors, name untold, mooned a couple. We stopped at Olongapo a few more times before we headed back to San Diego. We also made our last port call in Hawaii. We returned to Coronado on December 14, 1974, after 7 long, hard months. Here is a story that I have not told many people, and I'm sure the statute of limitations has run out. While cruising in the Indian Ocean, 5,000 miles from nearest land, around 1 in the morning, I had just gotten off watch, and I did some work around the compartment. Like a dummy, I threw a mop head overboard. I was amidships at the time, and as soon as the mop crossed the fantail, the watch alerted the bridge that there was a man overboard. Over the loudspeaker was heard by all at 1 o'clock in the morning, man overboard, man overboard. All crew muster at your stations. I was scared to death. I knew I committed a sea crime. The whole ship was mustered and the whole crew was accounted for, no man overboard. I believe we searched for that poor mophead for about 2.5 hours. It was never found. Thank God.
There's no statute of limitations.
Yeah, I was afraid I'd be sent to the brig or maybe even thrown overboard. Where else can you travel the world, get paid for it, and eat for free, but in the Navy? And the travel changed my outlook on our life here in the United States. We are a truly blessed nation in comparison to the countries that I visited. To this day, I still consider my time in the Navy one of the best times of my life, as I'm sure many of you do. Thanks, guys. Have a good evening. Enjoy the food.
Thank you, Mark. Next, we have GM3 Leon Alexander. Leon hails from Great Bend, Kansas. He joined the U.S. Navy at 17 years old and served as a gunner's mate from 1964 to 1967. Leon was previously a member at large, and with some convincing from Doc Fink, he became a member of our post recently.
Yay.
I am recording. I'm recording the whole thing.
Oh, you got me?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
I'll record the whole
Thank
thing.
you, Sam.
I'll send the whole thing. Maybe I'll put it on YouTube.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, fellow service members and friends, welcome. It is with great honor and pride that we gather here today to celebrate the 249th birthday of the United States Navy. For nearly 2.5 centuries, our Navy has stood a formidable force, safeguarding the seas and upholding the principles of freedom and democracy around the globe. Today, we not only commemorate the legacy of those who have served before us, but also honor the dedication of those who serve today and look forward to the future of our naval forces. I'm Leon Alexander, gunner's mate 3rd class. I had the privilege of serving on board the USS Newport News, CA-148, a Des Moines-class heavy cruiser, where I was a mount captain of a twin 5-inch 38 gun mount. During my service, the Newport News played a key role in significant moments in history, including the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Dominican Republic Crisis, and the Vietnam War. I also served aboard the USS Constellation, CVA-64. Yes, the Connie. A super aircraft carrier during the Vietnam War, and I had the privilege of serving on that ship with my older brother. And I could tell you some stories about our liberties. And had the opportunity for a short temporary duty on the USS Kearsarge, CVS-33, a redesignated World War II attack carrier to anti-submarine and search and rescue. Believe me, conditions on that ship didn't even compare to what we have today. These experiences have given me a deep appreciation for the importance of leadership, teamwork, and precision, values that I still carry with me today. I'm honored to celebrate the 249th Navy birthday with you. As we embark on this moment, this occasion, we must recall our humble beginnings. On October 13th, 1775, the Continental Congress established
Can you hear him?
established what is now the United States Navy, with a swift sailing vessel to carry 10 carriage guns and a proportional number of swivels, with 80 men be fitted with all possible dispatch for a cruise of 3 months. But it wasn't until 1972 that the Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Elmo Zumwalt, authorized official recognition of 13 October as the birthday for the U.S. Navy. Since then, each Chief of Naval Operations has encouraged Navy-wide celebration of the occasion to enhance a greater appreciation of Navy heritage and provide a positive influence towards pride and professionalism in the United States Navy. Thank you. To date, our Navy Guide on Staff is honored to be decorated with 36 battle streamers, 30 silver stars, and 41 bronze stars to commemorate the wars and combat actions of the United States Navy during its proud history. Those symbolize more than 200 campaigns and major battles and the many unit citations and commendations.
Tradition has it the engagement between Captain James Lawrence on his ship, the U.S. frigate Chesapeake, and HMS Shannon on 1 June 1813, when mortally wounded, ordered his men these heroic words: "Don't give up the ship." And I think we all live by that motto, especially at sea.
Don't.
Yeah. 8 August 1864, on Mobile Bay, Alabama, Admiral David Farragut, aboard the Hartford, entered the bay in 2 columns, with armored monitors leading a fleet of wooden ships. When the lead monitor was demolished by a mine, the wooden ship Brooklyn stopped, and the line drifted in confusion towards Fort Morgan. As disaster seemed imminent, Admiral Farragut gave the order, "Damn those torpedoes, full speed ahead." Then he swung his own ship clear and headed across the mines, which failed to explode. The torpedoes to which Farragut and his contemporaries referred would today be described as tethered mines. Then on 7 December 1941, the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Lieutenant Hal Maurice Forkey, a chaplain serving on the heavy cruiser USS New Orleans, saw the men of the ammunition party firing as they labored to bring ammunition to the anti-aircraft guns. Barred by his non-combat status, he gave moral support to the ammunition bearers by his words of encouragement, and so patted the men on the back and said, "Praise the Lord, pass that ammunition." These shipmates and many others have embedded the standards and traditions in naval service for future sailors. And speaking of traditions, there are numerous traditional unofficial recognitions that serve to boost shipboard morale on long deployments and an indication of sailors' sea experience. And as we've already heard, the most recognized is probably King Neptune's ceremony of going from Pollywog to Shellback by crossing the equator. One tradition that is not so well known is the realm of Boris Rex, King of the North, the Order of the Blue Nose bestowed upon sailors who cross the Arctic Circle. We already know the Shellbacks. Are there any Blue Noses in the crowd? Hey, all right.
That's cool.
All right. There are many other distinctions, such as the realm of the Golden Dragon when crossing the international date lines, or the royal domain of the Penguin, known as the Red Nose, when crossing into Antarctic Circle. And these are but a few of the many mariners' global line crossing ceremonies that help to develop pride of service and to maintain exceptional levels of performance and professionalism. Although this is a celebration of the Navy, I think I would be remiss if I didn't say something about our U.S. Marines. The very word Marine pertains to the sea. It is not so closely related today, though. U.S. Marines have always been seagoing. Their service aboard ships of the fleet spanned the days of sharpshooting from the frigate's rigging to the present-day service of ship's security and manning 5-inch gun mounts. Marines equipped with a musket and cutlass first served under Commodore Essex Hawkins aboard the USS Cabot in 1777. In 1803, action against the Barbary pirates took the Marines to the northern coast of Africa and to the shores of Tripoli. We do appreciate our little brothers. Today's developing events emphasizes the words uttered by President John F. Kennedy, 6 June 1963, and I quote, "Events of October 1962, Cuban Missile Crisis, indicated, as they had all through history, that control of the sea means security. Control of the seas can mean peace. Control of the seas can mean victory. The United States must control the sea if it is to protect your security," unquote. Then again, President John F. Kennedy, 1st of August, 1963, in Bancroft Hall at the U.S. Naval Academy, expressed, and I quote, "I can imagine no more rewarding a career in any man who may be asked in this country what he did to make his life worthwhile. I think he can respond with a good deal of pride and satisfaction. I served in the United States Navy. The Sailor's Creed is a code of ethics sworn by every sailor and officer. It focuses on self-respect, respect for others, and Navy's core values of honor, courage, commitment, and reinforces the notion that personnel are sailors first. And if you would, join me in the recital of the Creed, which you'll find on the back of the program. Okay. I am a United States sailor. I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, and I will obey the orders of those appointed over me. I represent the fighting spirit of the Navy and those who have gone before me to defend freedom and democracy around the world. I proudly serve my country's Navy combat team with honor, courage, and commitment. I am committed to excellence and fair treatment of all. Happy birthday, Navy.
Thank you.
Good job. Good job.
There is another sailor whose bio seemed fitting to share tonight. I have the honor of reading this bio to you. Seaman First Class August Liberino.
Oh, my favorite one.
Augie hails from Michigan. He joined the U.S. Navy at 17 years old and served as a gunner. He was in the Navy from August 1944 to March 1946. Augie has been a member of this post since 1989. August J. Liberino. August J. Liberino, known as Augie to his friends and family, was born on October 6, 1926 in Michigan, the fourth of 5 children to Mario and Francis Liberino, who had immigrated from Italy in 1907 in the beginning of a new life in America. Augie joined the United States Navy on August 16, 1944 at the age of 17. He served Boot Camp, Great Lakes, Fort Pierce, Florida, Providence, Rhode Island. He was commissioned to the USS Wheatland 85 on April 3, 1945 at the 35th Pier, Brooklyn, New York. He was a Seaman First Class and he acted as a gunner. His tour took him through the Panama Canal in May 1945 at Cristobal, RP. He went through numerous countries in the islands of the South Pacific, including Pearl Harbor and other places in the territory of Hawaii, Philippines, Okinawa, and Japan, while holding troops, supplies, and equipment. Augie traveled a total of 48,453 nautical miles. He received honorable discharge in March 20th, 1946. He met his wife, Christine, in 1954, and they married on August 13th, 1955. They were happily married for 56 years, until 2012, when Chris had passed away. They moved from Michigan to California in 1957, living in Alhambra, California, then moving to Anaheim, California, raising 4 children along the way. Augie worked for Swedlow Incorporated for 32 years and retired as a leadman in quality control. After retirement, Augie and Chris moved to Temecula in 1989, where he still resides. Augie became an active member of the VFW Post 5384 in Berea, California in 1986, and then at Post 4089 in Temecula at 1989. He served as many officers at the Post 4089. He served as the chaplain, junior vice, senior vice, including 2 terms as commander, 1990 to 1991 and 1991 to 1992. He is still active and participates in many VFW projects and supports the club by attending monthly meetings and drops by 2 to 3 times a week to socialize with fellow members. Thank you, Augie. Thank you for allowing me to read your bio. I just went ahead and shotgunned senior from post 1924. I've been helping out their post a little bit, and I had the honor of asking some of them, Navy Senior Chief, to come over to our post and I kind of just shotgunned him with reading our Chief of Naval Operations and Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy's birthday message. So welcome, Senior.
Thank you, Doc. Good evening, officers, enlisted, ladies and gentlemen, members of Post 4089, honored guests. It's my honor this evening to read to you the Chief of Naval Operations' birthday message to the fleet. America's warfighting Navy, it's time to reflect on our rich naval history as we celebrate our 249th birthday. 249 years of Navy warfighting strength and readiness. The birth of our Navy came nearly a year before our nation's independence. On October 13, 1775, during the early months of the Revolutionary War, our bold and daring continental sailors set sail for Boston to deliver America its first dose of warfighting advantage. From that point on, there was no turning back. The great American experiment was truly underway, and with it, the legacy of the United States Navy. Over the centuries, battles, and wars since our Navy sailors have continued to deliver warfighting advantage, always ready to preserve the peace, respond in crisis, and win decisively in war, if called. From the Eastern Mediterranean to the Indian Pacific, and everywhere in between, our sailors have been standing watch around the world, and around the deck, and around the clock, in every domain from seabed to space, and in cyberspace. No other Navy in the world can train, deploy, and sustain such a lethal and combat credible force at the pace, scale, and tempo that we do. All of this has been made possible by you, America's warfighting Navy. Each one of you plays a critical role in our feat. You are truly our secret weapon. As we look to the future and the decisive decade ahead, we know that our team will continue to answer our nation's call and build on our Navy's legacy with honor, courage, and commitment. We could not be more proud of each and every one of you, our active and reserve sailors, Navy civilians who contribute to our Navy success every day. Please extend our thanks to your families for their own service and sacrifice. We could not do what we do today. We could not do what we do to do every day without their love and support. Happy 249th birthday, shipmates. See you in the fleet. Released by Admiral L.M. Franchetta, Chief of Naval Operations, and Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy, J.M. Onea, Master Chief Petty Officer of the United States.
Thank you. I figured his voice would sound a little bit more appropriate coming from a gentleman saying happy birthday. At this time, would all past and present Navy sailors please rise to be recognized? All past and present Navy sailors please rise. Past and present Navy sailors, please stand. Sorry, Foggy. Sorry, Judge. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you for your selfless service to your country. Thank you. You may be seated. Commence the bell ringing ceremony. It is ceremonial that at 09 local time, the bell will be struck 9 times to commemorate the birthday of the United States Navy. It is not 09, but we're going to do it right now. 8 bells are struck to signal the end of the watch. This represents the end of the current birth year. BM1, strike 8 bells. As we celebrate our Navy's 249th birthday, our history and heritage forms our identity, telling us who we are and what we stand for. Our core values of honor, courage, and commitment have been passed down from our founders, who charged the Navy with solemn duty to serve as the shield of our republic. The first real test of our Navy faced was during World War II, the War of 1812. This war began at sea when the United States ships were ordered to heave upon the high seas, and the United States citizens were forcefully taken or impressed onto crews of other nations' ships. The great battle that followed proved the fighting mettle of our sailors and the cutting edge of our ship's designs. These battles established both free trade and free navigation as critical national interests of our country, interests that endured to this day. The warrior characteristics of cunning and boldness exhibited in 1812 inspire our sailors of today's Navy as they continue to serve around the world. The War of 1812 served as a critical turning point for our Navy. On this 249th birthday of our Navy, we have the honor to serve in the greatest maritime fighting force of the world has ever seen. But we do so with humility, continuing to build upon the framework of those fighting sailors that have forged before us. History teaches us, with great power comes great responsibility. From the great captains of crews who fought single ship actions in 1812 to the commerce raiders of the Civil War, from the convoys of World War I to the major fleet actions of Coral Sea and the Midway, the blockade of Cuba in October of 1962, to the riverine operations in the Tigris and the Euphrates. Our Navy has boldly and proudly put our shoulder to the wheel. We have championed peace, and we still continue to shield the Republic. Here's to 249 years of proud naval heritage and many more. The single bell ceremonial ninth traditionally is used to signal the start of a new watch. This represents the start of a new year, our 249th year. BM1, strike one bell. Okay, we'll go ahead and play Anchors Away after the ceremony. We'll go ahead and finish out. It is customary at the Navy birthday celebrations worldwide to cut a traditional cake in the celebration of our birth of our Navy. The first piece of cake is going to be given to our guest speakers, Mark and Leon. If anybody wants a picture of the cake, you may rise and get that now. It's about to be butchered. So as stated, the first piece of cake is given to the guest speakers. We have Mark and Leon. And our wonderful Charlene will be presenting them with their piece of cake. We're foregoing the cutlery tonight. Do it Navy style. A second piece of cake.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.
So a second piece of cake is given to the oldest sailor present. After much debate, Augie, you won this one. You won that one, Augie. So Augie was born on 6 October 1926.
You're the oldest.
And he enlisted into the Navy on the 16th of August, 1944 at 17 years old. Augie just recently celebrated his 98th birthday. So Augie is the oldest sailor, and then traditionally, upon receiving the second piece of cake, which is Augie's piece, he will then transfer his piece of cake to the youngest sailor. And this tradition is the signifying of passing experience and knowledge from the old to the young.
She's the youngest.
Carissa
You're the oldest.
was born on 22 August 88, and she enlisted into the Navy in April 2007 at 17 years old. Carissa is our youngest sailor present.
No. Lucy, Harry.
I didn't hear for work, so you don't have. You can park me.
Doc Fink has something to say.
Okay, the thing is, when I said, Sam, could you help us with the Navy birthday? I didn't realize she was gonna do this. My thing would have been so much worse. Kind of like the pollywog thing. She did a shellback type presentation, so all the decorations, all the flyers and everything, that's Sam. Thank you.
And all of our helpers too. Thank you so much. Okay, we would like to say thank you to our guest speakers, QM3 Mark Christensen, GM3 Leon Alexander, the bosun, BM1 Surface Warfare, Air Warfare, Jonathan Burrell, our USMC rep, GMG3 Alex PACHON, Doc Rod Fink, and his lovely wife Charlene. All of these people put this together, and we couldn't have done this without them. Please join us for dinner. Go ahead. Please join us for dinner and cake after the ceremony. Dinner was prepared by a few of our members, and the cake was donated by the Post Auxiliary. As always, donations are welcome, and drinks are served at the bar. There is an opportunity for photos. Please don't pass that up. We've got some pretty cool props over there for you. And during your dinner, Doc will be showing us a video if we could get this working. Lastly, please accompany us inside en route to your dinner. Doc would like to introduce a few members to the wall. And please don't forget to have your piece of cake. Thank you so much for attending our Navy birthday ceremony. Can everybody go inside, please? We're going to go inside and watch Doc.